Given what we know about how people use the internet, it's surprising podcasting works at all. Or perhaps explains why, for many struggling shows, it doesn't. Today, it's about trust, timely data, or infotainment. Hello and welcome to another Podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. So I got an air fryer recently. Yes, this episode is about podcasting. I just need to start off with a metaphor. Give me a break. That air fryer's very cool, but I really don't know what I'm doing when it comes to an air fryer. So I did what anybody else would do. I started looking for information. And I started looking for recipes and other sorts of things, and maybe even people to follow who can help me as I become a massive air fryer cook. And there's a parallel with all of this into podcasting. You see, because when I got the air fryer, I opened up the book that came with it that had 100 recipes. And that was pretty much my trusted source. If it was in here, it was obviously something good, right? And 100 recipes. That's not a bad place to start. But then I quickly found myself outgrowing those 100 recipes because, surprise, not everything is something that I really wanted. So I did what anybody else would do, and I turned to the internet, and I started searching. And if my first search was for air fryer recipes, I can promise you my second one was not. Why? Because, well, that gives too much. That's the same problem I had before. I already have a trusted source with information. What I'm looking for now is something more specific to my needs. So I'm going to search for air fryer kumquat recipes, or something equally as bizarre. And then the last thing I can do with the air fryer is I've found various YouTube channels where people will show you how to cook various dishes, interesting, weird things inside of that, and for using the air fryer. And they will do it over the course of multiple episodes of their show. Every time I tune in, it's something weird and wonderful. I'm being entertained. Now, as I mentioned, this is about podcasting, not about air fryers, and I think that it speaks to the way the internet works, the way we humans have learned and trained ourselves to use the internet. It kind of shows one of the weaknesses, if you will, for podcasting. And that is because people really have three go-to things they're looking for with digital content, of which podcasting is. People want content because it's from a source that they trust. A trusted source. The New York Times, some amazing journalist covering really, really great things, or a comedian who happens to have funny things. You trust. That person's audience trusts. That company's audience trusts. That every day, every week, every other week, every month, content will be delivered to them that they are likely going to enjoy. That's number one. Number two is the timely data, the very specific searches people are doing to find out one nugget of truth, one nugget of something, one question that is unanswered that they are looking for. They turn to the internet for that. They turn to a search engine for that specifically, and even the search engines have capitalized on that now. A lot of the times when you search something on Google, you'll see a knowledge box in the upper right-hand corner, as Google just tries to get you to the information quicker. Same thing, people are searching the internet for something quick. They want timely bits of data. For a podcast, which Google is now getting into, as you all know, with Google Podcasts, they're trying to have that discovery of timely data right there in the search engine. So have podcasting search results come up, or podcasts come up in the search engine results, I should say. Now, that's a little harder for us as podcasters, especially those who are making content that they're pushing out every day, every week, that's not necessarily what somebody is asking for, but because something that you want to deliver, that's back up in the trust area. In the timely data, somebody's searching for something very specific, and they want to get information. Well, that's problematic for a podcast, especially if the nugget of information someone is looking for is buried deep inside a 45-minute podcast. It's not helping that person with timely data. It's not helping them answer their question. Videos have the same problem. I was watching a video the other day on how to get my silly video camera set up working with streaming once again, and I had to sit through, or actually I didn't sit through, a 14-minute long video to answer a simple question. That's not a great fit for that. And I didn't know the person that I was watching the video for, so I didn't really trust that they had the right information, so I kept searching. I kept searching around. I think a lot of people keep searching around today. And the final one of those I mentioned earlier is infotainment, right? That's the time where somebody is wanting to be entertained. Maybe I don't necessarily know enough about the person to trust that everything that they give me is what I want. I'm not looking for timely data, but I do want to be either educated or informed or entertained or all those things shoved in together. Infotainment over a certain series, over a spread of time. Right? There's something I want to know about. There's something I want to listen and learn about. There's a story that is really, really compelling that's told over several different episodes, several different installments, miniseries like that works in the podcasting world. But how people go about finding that is different than how they go about finding timely data and how they find someone that they can trust. So really, when we think about this from our point of view as a podcaster, we need to figure out, well, maybe we don't need to figure that out. Maybe we need to understand where we think we fit the best, maybe is the best way to say that. It's hard to be an individual without a big following who's not a celebrity and to develop that trust. So if people don't trust us, don't know who we are, don't know the company, don't know the service behind us, asking them to listen to a podcast and getting to subscribe to a podcast is awfully way too big of an ask. They're going to instead go to the service, go to the company, go to the person they already trust to deliver that information. Of course, trust is something that you can build up over time. But if you're not that big celebrity, it's hard to ask. It's a really big ask. People can't really know you enough to trust you about that. If your timely data is buried inside of a super long episode, then podcast listening is too big of an ask for someone who's looking for something very individual and succinct. It's hard to do in a podcast form. It's doable. Some podcasts that are exploring more the micro formats are learning about that. That's doable, making it less of a big ask for someone to listen. And then, of course, infotainment, that education, that entertainment, that knowledge that you're trying to build over the course of several episodes, that's a really big ask because now you're asking someone to commit to listening to something for 3, 5, 7, 17 different episodes over time. Are you able to weave a story together and continue the narrative and make it so compelling that people want to keep listening? I mean, even if something is goofy about a hit song from the 80s that is rumored to be written by the CIA, that's an interesting story. Is it interesting enough to get someone to keep listening over time? Because if it's not, then it's too big of an ask. So sit with all of that. Think about the kind of content you produce and find out. Ask yourself, is what you're asking people to do, listen to your show, too big of an ask? Are you helping them understand that it's not that big of an ask? Now, this show was designed to be questioning, no real answers given. That's what I do here on Podcast Pontifications oftentimes, as I think through some things, and hopefully you're thinking through them as well. I would love it if you would take this episode and send an email to someone in your podcasting circle today with a link to this episode. Send it to them and say, what do you think about this? It helps get exposure for my show and also gets people talking, which is really what I want to do, because as we talk, we can ultimately make podcasting better. And if you're happy that Season 3 is back and I am back bringing this into you and you trust me, it'd be great if you went to buymeacoffee.com/evoterra and signed up for like a monthly donation. It's a little bitty tiny amount of cash for you, and it keeps the show going. It makes me feel nice and warm inside, and plus, hey, money's always good. All right, that's it. I shall be back tomorrow with yet another Podcast Pontifications. Cheers.